BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
So it's nice to have a nice, relaxing sit down and talk with Megan.
Oh, well, I'm happy that I can offer you that.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just jump right into this like we always do. I mean, I even at least said your name though in the first couple minutes. So
Yes, there was that. Yay, we kind of sort of introed.
I think there's been like 3 or 4 episodes where we went through the entire episode and I never once said your name.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
So,
Everyone knows who you are.
you know, we have such great conversations that like the little things just kind of,
Yes.
are out of our mind.
They are. So how have you been since the last time we talked?
I've been exhausted
Yeah.
in a good way, I suppose.
That's good.
I mean, since the last time we talked, I ran Tough Mudder Infinity. And then I went right into my build because I'm running Toughest Minnesota next weekend. And then, life and everything else. And like training has been high. I think I hit like that mid-season slump kind of thing where I'm just exhausted all the time. I'm on, multiple months of 100-mile months. And I'm feeling good about my running, but I just want to sleep all the time. And I'm really trying to make sure my nutrition is on point, my hydration, my rest. And just, work is really busy. So I'm, in that mode where there's not enough hours in the day and I'm trying to let my body catch up. But finally, I think I've turned the corner from that and I'm feeling a lot better, seeing a lot better results like on my runs. So hopefully I will peak just in time for Toughest.
Hopefully that'll be good. I know that's what my thing is. Just with everything else in my life, I've been trying to make sure I still get in the exercise, trying to eat correctly. This last week has been a horrible because I spent the entire week. I wasn't home. I was in a hotel the entire week. So I was trying to find ways to make sure to still try and eat healthy, but, not do anything, that I shouldn't. So, and especially considering my body was screaming for food and everything else, because I did the SISU event was last weekend.
Mhm.
So I did that, which was amazing as always. It was a blast. I'm not happy with my results, but it's okay. I'm okay with
Okay.
it, but I'm not happy with it. But
Do you
my
want to
knee-
talk about it?
kind of a little bit.
Well, then let's talk about it. I mean,
I went in.
what we're
yeah.
here to do, talk
It is.
about how our performance is going and talk about ways
To
improve it. Yeah.
It comes, a lot of it is listen to yourself when something, a piece of your equipment's done, but you love it so much that you keep using it and then bad things
Mhm.
happen. That's pretty much what it was. I love my ultras. I've loved my Ultra Kings forever. Well, they quit making them 3 years ago now.
Something
So
like that.
I had 2 pairs that were left and they were on the end. They were probably beyond the end. So, and that's what I took with me. I took those and then I took my normal running shoes with me for the SISU event. The first lap I did was a quick 4-miler. But I mean, like 4 miles with like 1,500 feet elevation. So, I mean, this whole thing's a lot of elevation. So that was the first one I did. Totally fine. The second one was more of a 10-mile hike out and back. The shoe blew out at I think there was 4 miles from getting back to camp. So, and one whole side pretty much ripped. So as I was walking, and I mean, because ultras, there's the side is pretty much on the ground. So it was dirt and everything kept getting into the shoe. So by the time we got back to camp, I had blisters and actual bruising on the bottom of my feet from the stuff getting into the shoe.
Oh.
So, and that's where at mile 14 at that point. I'm like, shoot. So I switched to the other ultras. They held up for most of the rest of it. I noticed them starting to have tear on the sides on, about mile 24. And then that was about time they did yoga in the middle of the night. We did yoga. I'm like, I need to take a nap for a minute. Slept for about 3-ish hours and then got up, put on my Brooks and just went for one of the hikes. I knew there was no water and nothing else. It was going to be fine with wearing the street shoes. But by that time, the blisters and the bruising was so bad on my right foot that it took me almost 2 hours, or a little over 2 hours actually, to do. It was a 3 mile. It was an out and back. It was almost 4 miles total. But I mean, it was also, I mean, it was 1,500 feet up. So, I mean, it was a lot of elevation and a lot of up, but it just, my foot was hurting so bad. I couldn't run. I could barely like walk at that point. And once I got back, it was like, I didn't have enough time at that point to go for another loop. So I was looking at it. I'm like, I think I could do another one. My foot's killing me, but I think I could do it. And then by that time, my knee had gone out earlier in the evening too. So my left knee. So because I was walking differently, because my right foot was bothering me, my knee and my hip on the left side started to go out and started bothering me. So it's kind of one of those, it didn't go the way I wanted, mainly because I started with the wrong equipment. I should have gotten new shoes 4 months ago and broke them in and been ready to go, rather than going with, because, you know, I like I said, I loved my ultras, but they were done, and they were done. They should have been, the last race I used them on should have been the Beast, you know, in November. But you know how it is. You get a piece of equipment that you love and you're like, I don't want to let it go, but it's like, it's done. There's nothing I can do to save this. So yeah, so they're pretty, I should have got rid of them. So I ended up, I think it was a total 29 miles, and I think just over 5,000 feet elevation in the race. So, which was about 10 miles shorter than I wanted to be.
Okay. So I want to get in more on the race and how we can learn from that. But I will add my own little antidote because, as I mentioned, I'm getting ready to run toughest next week. And I am in a similar predicament as you. I am obsessed with my King MTs. I bought 2 pairs back after the 2021 Carolina Ultra. And I said, I am not wearing these for anything other than race day. I mean, if you haven't run in King MTs before, and I'm saying this to the listeners, if you haven't run in them before, you're not familiar with them, they are the closest things Ultra pretty much has to a minimalist shoe. It's very flat, not much cushion. You can feel the ground beneath your feet. They are phenomenal if you are zero drop and looking to run something in a more minimalist fashion. It's got really awesome tread. They are just incredible shoes. Unfortunately, Ultra discontinued them a few years ago. They had a thing with Spartan where they were going to be a trail sponsor, and then Spartan went to Craft, and I don't know why Ultra discontinued them, but they did. So I bought 2 pairs off the Spartan website on clearance, stocked up. I've been wearing the first of those pairs literally only for racing for the last year and a half, and I didn't do really any ultras last year, so I didn't have to worry about getting high mileage on them in a single race. And I didn't run any beasts either, I don't think. Wow, did I not run a trifecta last year? But regardless, so I ran them in them for Infinity, and I lasted all of Infinity in them. They were phenomenal, no issues in my feet. I had two other pairs of shoes just in case, because I do enjoy my Timps for higher distance running. But I didn't feel like I ever needed to change out of my King MTs, so I didn't. So then I brought them home, I rinsed them off, I let them dry, and there's, you know, a little bit of wear and tear on them now. You're starting to get some holes. So I brought them out this morning because I'm like, I need to test these out and see how much life I have back in them. I still have one other pair in my closet, and I think we talked about it before. A couple of years ago, I was in a similar predicament where it's like I have a couple pair of King MTs that have some mileage left, so I'm going to run in them. And it turns out they didn't have the same wear pattern from my foot for that year, and I ended up getting IT band syndrome. And I didn't test out my shoes on a long enough run beforehand to figure that out. So today I was like, I'm going to take these out, test them out, see how I do. I put them on, and I didn't like stretch my shoes or anything when they were drying. I just kind of let them dry, and they got really stiff. So putting them on, and I have Caterpie laces in them, I got going, and within an hour, I was like, my feet are numb. These are so stiff. My calves are just killing me. Like there's a problem here. So I loosened up my shoes slightly. I was far enough away from my truck that I couldn't go back and change shoes. So I just went with it. It was a taper run today. So
Mm.
slow. I'm not worrying about my pacing. I'm not worrying about my heart rate. Just feel out my body, see what it needs. And after about like 30 to 45 minutes or so, I was feeling fine, and actually my feet felt great. And the rest of the run, like everything just started to loosen up. So coming off of it, I'm thinking, oh, you know, now that they're loosened up a little bit, maybe I can wear them for toughest next week. But hearing you talk about this, I'm thinking, we always tell people to
Hmm.
have a rotation and to work your shoes in a rotation. And maybe I'll just toss those new pair of Kings into the rotation this week, because they're short enough runs that I can like break them in slightly. But with
Yeah.
King MTs or ultras in general, if you're used to ultras, you don't really need much of a break-in period for them. So you can run in ultras straight out of the box as long as you're transitioned. Like, I'm not going to run straight out of the box at toughest with a fresh pair, but I might pull them out for my run tomorrow, see how I feel for like 4 miles. And then instead of wearing my old pair of Kings, start working my final pair of Kings in, where those older ones maybe for like Savage in a couple weeks, maybe for like the Spartans, and then keep
Yeah.
the newer Kings for the more technical races, the longer races.
Yeah. And
And
see, that's
yeah,
where because I got mine, like, because I know the pair that I have, the one of them is the Spartan pair of, and that's the one that completely failed on me.
yeah,
But I bought those because I'd already had the other pair for I think a couple months, and I loved them, and I love my MTs. And then when I found out they weren't making them anymore, I bought like one of the last pair of the Spartan ones that they had in my size.
yep,
Like it was the only pair they had. Bought them, good to go. But then I mean, that was what, 2021? No, I think it was before COVID when they quit making them.
yeah.
So
But no, I think it
no,
was during COVID.
yes, I think it was during COVID. So, I mean, every race I did last year, like every trifecta weekend I did, which I did what, 4 trifecta weekends, I would wear one pair on Saturday and one pair on Sunday. So that was every one of them, that's 15 plus miles plus, and when I did Infinity, when I
Mhm.
did this run, the last 2 years, I've had my, and last year was 37 miles, and the year before that was 34. So I mean, I put a lot of miles on these, and they had some. It was like right, but behind the toes, right at that curve, they'd get a hole, which is
Yep.
fine. But now both of them, the Spartan one's completely split on the right side, like all the way down the side where they touch, um, where like attaches to the sole, and then the other ones are starting to. I noticed it when I was done. I looked at them and saw that I'm like, oh, these ones are about to do it too. So they're
Yeah.
unfortunately, like I said, I love the MTs, but they're done. And I talked to actually, they had one of the ultra reps was at the race, and I was like, why did they quit making? She's like, I don't know, but that's the biggest question I get from people when I go to,
Everybody.
yep. She's like, when I go to trail races, when I'm at any kind of mud race, the first question I get is, why did they stop making the MTs?
Yeah, I talked to the ultra rep when they were here for the run show in Boston. And I walked up, I introduced myself. I said, I was on the red team last year.
Mm.
I wear nothing but ultras. I love them. But I'm an obstacle course racer. And they stopped me and they said, but the King MTs. I said, yes. Every ultra runner, like people who wear ultras in the
Yeah.
OCR world, got into them because of the King MTs. They were such phenomenal shoes, and now we're left scratching our head like, what's next? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, the Lone Peaks, go to the Lone Peaks. But the sizing on the Lone Peaks is off just a little bit, and it's not the same shoe
No.
that we're used to.
It's not, and that's the tough part. I mean, the nice thing I loved about the MTs was, like you said, I mean, in the shape. They're not shaped like a normal shoe. They're actually
Mm,
shaped for a foot. And my
yeah.
problem I run into up until my foot injury, I used Innovates, which I loved the traction on an Innovate. I thought they were great, but they're very narrow.
Mhm.
And the problem that I ran into after my foot injury, I can't. My foot's too wide now because of the injury. And if I put on a pair of Innovates within a couple minutes, it hurts, because it's squeezing my foot so bad. And that's kind of why I love the Ultras. They were the only like trail mud shoe that didn't hurt my feet. Because I've had a lot of people talk about like the VJs, and they're like, oh, if you have a problem, if you have wide feet, no, the VJs aren't for you. They're too
Yeah.
narrow. And I'm like, well, what ones aren't? And they're like Ultra MTs. Well, they don't make those anymore.
Mhm.
So yeah. So
I
that's
will
that's the fun
say
part.
the superiors, they look like they're narrow. And for a while, I wasn't wearing my superiors because I have a heel thing and I wore them once. It was like, oh my gosh, my heel just felt horrible in them. And then I went back and I put them on a couple months later. And again, they look narrow. And as soon as I slid my foot in, I was like, this is actually much more spacious than I remember it being.
Hmm. I have to
Um,
look at those.
if you have a place locally that sells ultras, don't know how many places actually keep the superiors in stock versus having to order them. But Ultra does have a really good return policy. If you wanted to try a couple of different shoes, usually you can find the Lone Peaks somewhere to test those out. There's a couple of other models that they might have out at like an REI or an
Yeah.
outdoor store.
Well, see, that's where I made my mistake, is I could have, because Ultra was there and they
Mhm.
had shoes to borrow if you wanted to borrow and try them out. And I was going to try the Lone Peaks, but then the problem I had was by the time I came back, it was the middle of the night.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, maybe, but then she wasn't up, and I wasn't going to go like beat on her tent and say, I want the Lone Peaks. So I just kind of,
Right.
I decided to let it go. But she talked to about trying the Lone Peaks, but I just didn't get a chance to. So I think I might end up just getting a pair, trying them out, see what it does, because I love the Ultras. I loved that. I mean,
Mhm.
like I said, what I loved about the Kings is, which is funny because when I run normally, like on the street, I wear Brooks. I
Mhm.
have, the what, I can't remember, pronate, whatever I pronate when I run. So
Yep.
I have the Brooks that fix that. I blah 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 whatever. So I hate zero drop on the street,
Mhm.
but on the trails, that's all I want.
Yeah.
So, and it's definitely one of those things for me because concrete, asphalt just hurts my knees. So I love
Mhm.
the cushion of those. But when you're out running on the trails, I want to feel the roots. I want to
Yeah.
feel, which a lot of people are like, why would you want to feel that? I'm like, because then I can adjust to it. My foot isn't
Yeah.
just sliding off of them. I can say, oh, there's something. And then I can adjust my movement as I'm running so I'm not falling, you know.
Yeah, it wakes up your ankle stabilizers. The
Yep.
more you can feel the ground, the more your foot will work, and those nerves
Mhm.
are what's going to keep your ankle stable, especially running with roots and rocks
Yep.
and everything else.
Yeah. So I love the zero drop when I'm running, but yeah, so it's been interesting that, when I did that, so my foot was nicely messed up by the time I got done. It's still not great, a week later, but I made my mistake. I did what they tell you not to do. Of course, I drained the blister because, well, it's on my heel and I couldn't put weight on it.
Mhm. Yep.
But yeah, and then I had literally did that and then had to come home, take all this stuff out of like that I was packed up for the event, and then pack up a whole nother bag so that I could go for work and spend 4 days in a hotel. So,
Yeah.
so I didn't even get and my hotel didn't have a bathtub. I was pissed.
Oh, that's the
I
worst.
wanted the Epsom salt bath, and I'm like, no,
Although
but
that would have really hurt with the blister.
probably a little bit, but yeah,
Did you get the name of the ultra rep?
no. I
Oh,
saw her license plate. It said she was from Texas and she had blonde hair. That's about all I remember.
okay. I probably would have gotten the name of the ultra rep
I'm
and
horrible at that.
contact Ultra and find out if they have a list of events that they are going to have shoes at, because they will come out to like local trail running groups or road running groups or whatever else, and they will bring shoes to test out.
Yeah.
So if you contact them, find out where they're planning to come to have these like little test runs, you can still go and test them out without you know.
I could
having
find out who it
by
was though,
them.
because I know who set up the vendors. So
Okay.
Special K set up the vendors, so I can reach out to her. But
I mean,
yeah,
you're
so
so connected at this point, you can figure that out.
I can. And I mean, it's one of those things. And like I said, though, I mean, for anybody who, when I'm talking about like Sisu, the event is amazing. My foot issues were my own issue, but if you ever get a chance, do the Pacific Northwest Sisu race. It's amazing. It's
And
so beautiful, so gorgeous.
I hear that from so many people. I need to get out there for it.
It is a beautiful one. We had, and this year actually for the first time in the history of the race, and it's been this is year 4, I think. Yeah, this was 4. The first time someone hit the 100 miles.
Really?
Yeah, nobody had ever hit 100 miles until this year. So, and he did it with, I think, like 3 hours to spare.
That's amazing.
So, because it's one of those ones a lot of people don't think about. I mean, you do 100 milers, yes, but this is a completely different race. Just in the 29 miles I did was over 5,000 feet elevation. So,
Awesome.
I mean, it's insane. And that's where my knee went, and a lot of people don't think about this. It wasn't the up, it's the down.
It's the down.
I went up one of them that was a lot of switchbacks. I mean, straight up the hill. And then coming down all of a sudden, and it was night at that point. It was pitch black. You know, I had my headlamp and everything else, but pitch black. And I hit something just wrong when I stepped, and it was a downhill. My knee popped, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be a problem. So, of course, and that was my other problem when I got up in the morning. My knee was throbbing, my foot was throbbing, but I'm like, let's go for it. And it's just like I did that one, and I'm like, okay, it took me over 2 hours to do almost 4 miles. I think I'm done.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like, I think I'm done. I'm like, just my leg would not move. I had my walking poles, and if it wasn't for those, I couldn't barely put weight on my right foot. And I'm like, it was stupid to come out here for one more, but I, wanted to hit this last one. Mainly because I wanted to see the waterfall because I knew it was gorgeous. But
Yeah.
and that's the best part on this one. I do have some of the pictures I've got. I don't know if you saw the pictures that I took, but I mean, it's just, you're out in the middle of Washington State woods, nothing but waterfalls and gorgeous, just beautiful views. I got a great view. I made sure not to let my partners that are with me post a picture of where I was at to get that picture of the great view, but because we all know the safety guy doesn't follow safety rules. So I was up on a peak. I went out, scrambled out onto this rock precipice with 200 feet of drop on either side of me, and I was like balancing on this. It was maybe 6 inches wide.
Wow.
So I could go out there 15 feet just so I could get a good picture. And they're like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? I'm like, the view out here is amazing. They're like, well, we can see it from back here. I'm like, no, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. So I'm like, it's gorgeous out here, but you got to risk your life to see it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So since the race, what have you been doing for recovery?
Stretching. I do have the air, whatever massage things that you would put on your legs just a little bit to get blood flow going. Trying to move to keep moving, to keep the blood flowing because my legs are angry. But that's really it. A little bit of, knee sleeve with CBD oil to keep my knee feeling better, which my knee actually, but a week later is feeling great. I know not to push it, because I know how my knee will be. It feels good right now, but I know the wrong step and it could be angry again. But that's really it. Stretching, moving a little bit. I mean, I've still been doing my mile a day, but the mile a day for the last week has been pretty much a walk, not a jog, just to get the legs moving. And then yesterday I went and played golf for 18 rounds or 18 holes. So,
Okay.
but
So you haven't done any kind of biking or tried running yet?
no, that was going to be today. After we're done recording today, I was going to go do some stuff just to see how it was. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
the hard part was, like I said, because I was in a hotel for the last,
Right.
4 days, and then came home just in time to basically unpack the car again to pack it up to be able to play golf yesterday. So,
Right.
but which was a blast. I forgot how much fun that is. So I only play once a year, and it's the tournament that happened yesterday. Normally, I don't get to completely celebrate at the tournament because usually the last couple of years it's been the day before Sisu.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to make sure I'm hydrated, but I'm out in the sun for a tournament. So I'm drinking a lot of water, doing all that stuff. Well, yesterday I didn't have a race today, so there might have been a little more alcohol than normal, but And I may have smoked a cigar, but that's my one cigar every year is at this tournament. I smoke one.
Hey,
So yeah, I mean, it's
you
been
know,
7 years since I quit smoking. So
you can relax and have fun as long as
oh,
you're
yeah.
not drinking and driving.
No, nope, definitely not. So it's one of those, I figured it out years ago. It's like a math I do in my head where I'm like, if I drink this much up to this point, and then I have like this much time before I have to drive home, we should be good. So yeah, there was a lot of drinking on the first 9, not a lot on
Okay.
the last 9. So yeah,
Okay.
and I was 15 minutes from home. So yeah, but yeah, it was a fun night. It's been a long time since I really played golf, and it was good to get out there with other safety people and play some golf. So
Okay, good.
yeah. But yeah, today pretty much I got some cleanup to do, like I said, because the house is getting ready to go on the market. And then I was planning on taking one of the bikes and going for a bike ride for a bit just to kind of get the blood flowing in the legs.
Good. That'll be really good for you.
Yeah.
So what is your race plan now for the year?
The only thing I have left really on my schedule, I'm doing Ragnar in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then the only other one after that is the only thing I have planned is I'm just going to do a World's Toughest. Depending on
You
where
are
I'm.
doing World's Toughest.
Yes, I am doing World's Toughest. I'm going to sign. I've still got to sign up for it, but I'm doing it. Part of it too is recently, me and Don are supposed to do an episode and talk about this. We had a good friend of ours, Charity, died.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And right before COVID, we were supposed to do World's Toughest together.
Mhm.
So, and I've never had a chance to do it. And I know she never got a chance to do it again. So that was kind of going to be I'm going to do it this year for her. So it's kind of one of those things I've been tossing it around on whether or not I was going to do it. And then after that happened, I'm like, well, now I'm doing it for her. So I'm definitely doing it. So I want to do World's Toughest is my other one. I might do the Dallas Spartan, but I haven't decided yet. It depends on if we're in Texas and settled at that point.
Okay. I wouldn't recommend the Ultra right before World's Toughest.
No, I've done the Ultra there, but no, not right before
Yes.
World's Toughest.
No,
So
not
I
before World's
would,
Toughest.
if I do it, it would probably just be the Beast, or maybe depending on if I have friends there, because I might do it with More Heart Than Scars and
Oh,
help
okay,
them
yeah.
through the Beast, and maybe do the trifecta weekend with them, but helping the racers. So
Right.
Yeah.
But you've always been doing World's Toughest because I'm doing World's Toughest. And
Yes.
that is where we're finally going to be able to
meet in person. Yes, we've talked a lot, but never actually met in person. So it's always weird sometimes
Exactly.
when you get that. So like SISU, I got a weird one where a guy that listens constantly, who like
Yeah.
when I met him and he's like, I listen to all of your episodes, and I'm like, oh. He's like the whole
Oh.
reason he's like the whole reason I do this or signed up for the SISU is because you kept talking about it. I'm like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. So yeah,
That's so awesome.
yeah, it is.
That's the best. I love being able to continue to promote.
It is, especially
races.
yes, and especially good races that I just love, and I mean do so much for everybody. So
yeah. So what's your training looking like now with Ragnar coming up? What are you going to do to prepare? 'Cause you've got no time.
No, I don't. It's going to be a lot of running. So I need to, that's what I need to sit down with and kind of think about what my running schedule, because for that one, I mean, I do need to do some weight lifting and stuff like that to strength training and everything, but I need to really get the running in, because that's what Ragnar is. It's just running miles.
And it's in 2 weeks.
Am I 3 weeks? Might be
Okay.
2 or 3, somewhere in there. But
So I'd say give yourself 2 weeks of building, 1 week of taper.
Yeah.
If you throw in any strength training, it's injury prevention stuff.
Yeah.
Keep your hamstrings and glutes active, keep your hip flexors mobile and inactive, and get that ankle mobility.
Yeah, and that's it. So, and it's a matter of just making sure, because I have a pair of shoes that I want to make sure that I, use before they are train in the shoes I'm going to run in a little bit.
Yes.
So
is it trail or road?
It's all road. So
okay.
Yeah, this is the road one. I want to do the trail one eventually. So, but if I did that one, I'd have to make sure I got new shoes, because yeah, my Brooks are not going to be the best shoes for using, out on that. So
sounds like you just need new shoes in general. So maybe that should also be
do.
added to your list.
I do. Well, the one that I have, the pair that I have now, my Brooks are pretty much brand new. So
Yeah.
they're pretty new, but it's my trail shoes are not. So I need new trail shoes altogether,
Okay.
but my road shoes are pretty new. Sorry, I have an evil little cat coming in here. He's been all around my chair and now he's like in front of me getting ready to jump on the table. So yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So I guess you missed my reel that I put out after Toughest. I legitimately brought 2 different pairs of tips out to Toughest in anticipation that I was gonna have to wear them.
Yeah.
And I made a reel specifically for swap out your shoes. Said, I don't know who needs to hear this. Swap out your shoes.
It's probably me. Swap out the shoes.
So you should probably go swap out your shoes. And then all of these running brands should start having better loyalty programs.
Yes.
So we can all just continue to stock up because we are going through shoes so fast.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, I haven't been running as much as I was, but when I was doing the 100 miles a month, I was going through a pair of shoes every 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Because they basically usually only good for 300 to 400 miles.
Yeah.
So, and when you're running 100 miles a month, and you can tell when a shoe starts to break down. I mean, when all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this felt great before, and now I'm getting, calf issues and other stuff like that, and
Yeah.
so
The bottoms of your feet are starting to ache when you're running and you're not used to that. It's your shoes.
Yep. And people don't think about it. I mean, they're like, oh no, it's fine. No, it's not. It's the second your shoes start to give you problems, you need new ones. You need to stop.
Yeah.
Switch, get new shoes, fix it, because that's where you're going to start running into problems.
And I can't stress it enough. I tell all of my clients that their long run, it's not just a boring go out, run, train, whatever. It's testing gear.
Yeah.
And, I want to know what's happening, what they're experiencing when they're experiencing it, because I want to know, why are you having these aches and pains at this time? Why are you having dips in energy or whatever else? And shoes are a big part of it. If you feel like you're getting 10 miles in and suddenly your feet are starting to ache, okay, it's time to find a shoe, maybe either to swap out for any additional mileage, or you just need a shoe, for a little higher mileage. I turned to my friend today while we were running and we were talking about our shoes. And I was like, I've been doing a lot of running in my superiors lately. I haven't been running in the King MTs because I don't want to wear them out before I race. But I looked at him like, you're in the superiors. How do you feel with running races longer than 10 miles? He's like, they feel great for me. I love them. Like, okay, I love my superiors, but once that 10-mile mark hits, it's like a switch that flips and my feet are not happy.
Yeah.
And when my IT band went on that one ultra, I had started out in my King MTs, could tell that they weren't good anymore. So I switched for my superiors. I got maybe 8 miles in the superiors before I was like, no, these aren't good. Because even though I didn't run more than 10 miles in them, my body was over 10 miles in. And even swapping to that shoe, which is more for lower mileage, it wasn't okay. And my body needed something with more cushioning for it.
Yeah.
So every single person is different. Everybody needs a different thing. So, my friend can run a beast, a half, whatever else in superiors and be happy. Whereas I can't do more than 10 miles. So thinking about Toughest next week, the first lap is going to be a 10K. If I go out for a second lap, I'm already screwing myself over if I bring my superiors. I know my King MTs can last me a full ultra if I need to. My goal is somewhere between 35 and 45 miles. I can get majority of that race in my King MTs. And I haven't worn my King MTs for anything longer than a standard 50K. So we'll see.
Mhm.
I will have a second pair of shoe to switch out to. They're broken in, they're good to go. And if I need to, I have them. But I know there's no point in me bringing my superiors because they're not going to last for even 2 laps. And I want 6, 7 laps. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
And it's always good to have extra shoes. Like I said, when I do trifecta weekends, I had a pair for Saturday and a pair for Sunday.
Yeah.
So I could switch out. And also when I did the Dallas Ultra 2 years ago, that's also what I did. I had halfway through the Ultra in my bucket was my other pair of MTs. So
Mhm.
once I got done, because sometimes it's like, and it sounds weird, but just wearing them, they like you said, when they were really stiff when you started and then they start to get flexible, sometimes they even wearing them for a long period of time, they get flexible and it's good to just switch even in the middle of the race. So,
Yeah.
and I do that when I do like every time when I've done like the 45 miles or anything like that on the, when I did on the track, I think I switched shoes 4 times
Wow.
because I had extra shoes sitting there because if I started feeling anything weird, I could switch shoes and socks and start going again to try and keep that cushion on my feet. But
And that's the biggest lesson anybody can learn when it comes to distance racing, particularly anything over a beast.
mhm,
If you feel something in your shoe, that is going to turn into a disaster really quickly.
mhm,
So I don't care if, you know, your laces are a little tight. Okay, loosen them.
fix it.
Or you have dirt in your shoe. Fix it. If you feel a hot spot coming on for a blister, take care of it right away.
Mhm.
Because the longer you go with that, the worse it's going to get. And if your feet are not happy, you're not going very far.
No. Well, and that's like I said, that what happened to me on the CC was once that shoe blew out with like 4 miles left, I couldn't keep the dirt out. I kept
Mhm.
stopping, dumping the dirt, stopping, dumping the dirt. By the time we finished the last like half a mile, my running partner was laughing at me. I just took them off
Yeah.
and I barefooted the last little bit in. She's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "At this point, I'm starting to feel the blisters. I'm starting to feel the hot spots. And if I continue to do this with pushing against that dirt and everything else that keeps getting, because it kept sitting in 2 spots right on my heel, right in the middle of my foot, I'm like, I'm gonna have even more issues. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it wasn't soon enough. I'd already developed the blisters that weren't gonna go away. So,
Do
and
you
then it
have
just
trail gators?
no.
You might want to look into some trail gators.
Yeah. Now that
Yeah.
this happened, I thought, and it's one of those ones I've just never had a problem with it. I've always been fine, just going and no issues. It wasn't until that whole side split that it was, and the shoe obviously wasn't fitting right anymore because it wasn't holding because the side was split out. So it was just, it was a mistake. Like I said, I should have switched out the MTs a lot earlier. So
So I know eventually we are going to have a day where we actually talk about the show and New
this show.
Zealand
No. Oh
and
yes.
everything.
Which we do need to have that one, but
When
when is it coming to the US?
so it's done in New Zealand. They've aired it completely, and now Discovery Channel. So it was put on by Discovery in conjunction with a
Mhm.
local station there.
Now
So
you're famous in New Zealand.
I'm famous in New Zealand. Discovery has picked it up in select countries so far. So I think it's in somewhere in Southeast Asia. It's in like the Scandinavian countries. And they just premiered it in the UK on Discovery UK. It's on Discovery Plus in the UK. So anybody listening in the UK, you can go and watch Tracked on Discovery. It's every maybe Tuesday at 10 a.m. It's one of those days. It's airing at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. I don't know. They didn't actually tell us. They told the UK team. And then I
Yeah.
saw from the UK team and I was like, wait, I know people in the UK. I should be promoting this to
Yeah.
the UK as well. So we're hoping that Discovery in the US will pick it up. I mean, we're all starved for content right now. The
Yeah.
writers are still on strike. It's
Yeah.
the summer, like
Bring it on. We want to
bring
see
it
it.
over here. It's getting a great reception for the most part.
I mean, what
Um,
I'm surprised they haven't just even put it on, like, because Discovery has their streaming program, right?
right.
Put it
It's
on the streaming, put it on something so us in the US can
Max
see it.
is this giant streaming platform now
Yeah.
that's like all things Discovery plus HBO and everything else. Like just put it there.
Yeah, put it there so
Put it
us in
there.
the US, because that's the hard part is I want to talk about it, but then it's one of
Yeah.
those things at the same time I'm like, but I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, exactly. Me either. And
I
like
d-
people have
yeah,
seen what I've posted and they're like, okay, so that happens. And I'm like, yeah, but I still want you to watch. Like
yeah.
watch the show. It's a great show.
And
Um,
that's the hard part because it's kind of one of those things. It's like when you know there's a movie and you want to talk about it, but you don't want people to like ruin it
yeah,
for you. And I'm like, I want to know what happens and I want to watch it and I want to be like that's
yeah.
Megan. I know
Like
Megan. Yeah.
I am a giant Scream fan. I go and see the movie as soon as it comes out,
Mhm.
and I will put spoiler alerts on everything for like a solid week or two. And even when once it came onto Paramount Plus, I was like, spoiler alert, but you've had plenty of time to go and watch this for yourself. So if you wanted to
Yeah.
see it and not get it spoiled, you've had time. People in the US haven't had that
No.
time because they just don't have access to it. And it's like, I don't want to sit here and talk about all things about it because I know in the US people want to watch it, but they can't.
Yes.
And
And
they'll
that's been the
say,
hard part. I do want to talk about it, but then at the same time, I'm like, I haven't seen it. So
yeah,
it's like, ah,
yeah,
yeah,
there
yeah,
is some. So one of the other teams, they end up developing a really bad blister on their heel.
yeah.
And when you are out in the bush for days on end, getting chased by trackers, having to go through the most rugged terrain off, you're bushwhacking this entire thing, and you have this horrible blister, like that could make or break you. It got so bad to the point that, and this part isn't on the show, so they never showed this behind the scenes little bit, but
Yeah.
he actually had to pull out a knife. So he had like his pocket knife, and he cut the back of his boot out because the blister was so bad. And it's like, just change your shoes. Everybody just change your
Yes.
shoes.
Change the shoes.
You don't want to have to cut out the back of your shoe during a race because you
Yeah.
develop a blister. If
Yeah.
it's either I'm trying to win XYZ, in his case it was $100,000, and or if you're trying to get 50 miles at World's Toughest Mudder and you start to get a blister, have a different shoe to change into.
Yes.
But like also test your gear early enough so you know that that is a possibility, and have backups, what you're going to do for any kind of blister. During fit, I started developing a blister, and I second, third lap or so, I sat down, I put on like a blister pad, and then I taped it up. And because I'm not used to having my heel taped up, it actually was like causing me hot spots because I'm just not used to it. And
Mhm.
that's like my bad. Again, I was in my King MTs that I hadn't worn in a really long time, and I didn't test them out beforehand. And no excuse. Like it's all on me. I should have done that. But now I know, and I can use better blister protection and everything else.
And it's one of those things that, I mean, it is, the feet are, when you're running, that they're key. I mean, you lose your feet, you're done. I mean,
Yeah,
your feet go out, and that's been, my experience on a couple of them. I've only had this blister. This one was bad enough. And like I said, it was one of those things that I knew my MTs were good, or thought they were good. They worked for me forever, but that's the problem, is you also have to monitor not only like, hey, my shoes have been great for me forever. These shoes have been the best shoes ever. They eventually wear. And that's where I was at. I didn't pay attention to, I knew they were close, but I'm like, they should be good. But once they blew and I was so far from camp, I should have honestly had the other pair just with me out on the trail so I could have switched. But I didn't, and made that
Mhm.
mistake, and I ended up paying for it. which just killed my momentum for the rest of it. Because then the problem that you run into is because of the heel pain and that blister that was on my heel coming down, and that was the worst again. My knee and that heel I was getting the most of striking that heel coming down the mountain. So and then it's just, just more pain, more everything else. And it slowed me down. And like I said, by the time it came down, that last, 4-mile stretch was over 2 hours. And it's like, there's no reason, unless I was climbing straight up a pole, that should have taken me 4 hours to do, 2 hours to do 4 miles. So, and that's just kind of one of those things where at that point, I'm like, well, my body's telling me I'm done. And at that point too, it's not just that if I'd had more time, because I'm stubborn, and we all know I'm stubborn, I probably wouldn't have went for it out of the loop, but I didn't have enough at that point. There wasn't enough time to, left to even do it. So, and that was it. So just not paying attention to my shoe. That was the problem. I should have. And it's funny too, because my wife's even like, you even said that you should get new shoes before this, that you should have like 3 or 4 months ago. And I'm like, yeah, but I kept thinking the MTs, by having 2 pairs, that I could switch off if one of them was bad, which, like I said, the 1 pair lasted for most of the rest of it. The second pair, but when the one blew, because they were so close, I was 4 miles from camp. And it just, that little 4 miles was enough to cause enough of a blister to totally mess up my foot and mess up the rest of the race. So live and learn.
So we are not sponsored by Ultra
No.
by any means. If you're listening to this, I used to be on the red team. I'm not on the red team anymore. So they take all of my money as I stock up on shoes. But Ultra, if you're listening, 1, bring back the King MTs, please. And 2, we are desperate for new shoes.
Yes.
Not just
bring back some
MTs,
good ones. Yes.
But we would be happy to try out a couple other shoes so we can give listeners a good alternative for the King MTs.
Yeah, and I would definitely love to. definitely, I would. Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Because like I said, for all the years that I've raced, that was the best ones that I found. I've tried what Reebok used to have a pair, the Spartan pair. I even have. I think I still have those
too.
Yep,
they blew out after 2 races.
Yes, they did. The whole back, the heels completely blew out.
But they were such great shoes. They were so light, had great traction.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want the light, because even like my MTs, I used those when I did the run, swim, run thing with a friend, where I just left them on, and I jump in the water, swam 400 meters, hopped out of the water, and started running again. And they were so light, and just the material did not hold water, didn't do nothing. So the second you came out of the water or out of the mud, they just immediately drained. There was they didn't soak up any water. They didn't get any heavier. Yeah, we really do sound like we're doing commercials for MTs, don't we?
Yeah.
Ultra, bring them back.
This episode should be titled "For the Love of King MTs."
Yes, for the love of King MTs. So, which
we
I know
do love the King MTs.
Yeah,
Ultra,
I think
please
Dawn
bring
has
them
a
back.
pair. I think Dawn still has a pair that hasn't blown out yet. But
yeah, I know a bunch of friends that are like having serious anxiety and finding new shoes to wear after the King MTs.
Yeah, and that's it.
Like, just don't do it.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. Once you find a really good one, you're like, yes. And that's how it's been with running shoes forever. Because I can remember the very first pair of, like, when I finally got like real running shoes and stopped wearing those the swoosh things, and actually got real running shoes. They were Pearl Izumis.
Yeah.
And I loved Pearl Izumis. And then Pearl Izumi like quit making shoes. Like, not just not making those brand, like quit making shoes. So then it was, I think they're more of a biking thing now, but they made amazing running shoes. And then I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And it's that constant sorry about that. It's that constant battle of finding the right shoe. And then when they suddenly change the model, finding the right shoe again, because they just messed you up by changing the model of shoes.
Yeah. So unfortunate.
It is. It's the one thing when you get into running that nobody thinks about. Everyone's like, a shoe is a shoe. No, it's not.
No, it's not. When you find a good shoe, stock up.
Yeah, because before I started really running, like 15 years ago, I was training and all that, and I would run 100 yards and my shins would be on fire.
Mhm.
And I'm like, this is stupid. This is why I hate running. And I finally, one of my friends is like, go to a shoe store and have them watch you run. And I went and they're like, yeah, you shouldn't be wearing those swoosh things. What you need to be wearing is these. And I'm like, those are $150. And they're like, yes, but you'll love us for it. Like, fine, let's go for it. Bought
When it
them.
comes to shoes, you get what you pay for.
Yes. Yeah. So I bought them, and then I'm like, I ended up running a half marathon like a week later. And I ran the half marathon and I finished, and I looked at my wife and I'm like, best $150 I ever spent. Because when I was wearing the other ones, 100 yards, massive pain in my legs. I wore those Pearl Izumis for an entire half marathon and was totally fine. Not 1 ounce of pain in my legs. And I'm like, this is why you pay $150 for shoes.
You remember when the old school races would have the shoe donation after the race, because so many people would just toss their shoes?
Yep.
Like, oh, these are muddy here. Or, oh, I'm pulling out my old pair of running shoes because they're going to get muddy. And then, I'm not going to have to wear them again.
Yep.
And it's like, looking back now, whenever somebody tells me, oh, well, I'm just going to bring out an old pair of running shoes, I'm like, no, get good shoes. Like, do you know the terrain you're going to be running on?
Yeah.
You need all of the protection of a good shoe.
Yes.
And then they're like, but it's going to be muddy. I'm like, I don't care. Mud rinses off.
It does. It does. Yeah.
People were tossing out perfectly good shoes.
Because they got a little dirty.
They got a little dirty.
And that's, I mean, it's, and I can remember when I first started, I had the same thought. Oh, I'm just going to wear an old pair of shoes that I was going to throw away anyway.
Oh,
And then
definitely.
afterwards, I'm like, well, that was just dumb, because there was a reason why I wasn't wearing these old pair of shoes, because they're broken down.
Yeah.
So, and then once I started thinking, oh, if I buy and you buy a good, like I said, my MTs have probably been through, I mean, between the 2 pairs, probably 30 Spartan races, 3 SISUs. I mean, they've been through a lot before they finally blew out. So it wasn't like, I bought them, wore them twice and threw them away, like, the original Reebok ones. But,
I
I
only
mean,
threw out those Reebok shoes because the bottom was completely
yes.
detached from the rest of the shoe.
And that was it. I mean, besides that, they were amazing. They had great traction. They fit great, but the whole bottom, that's what happened to mine. The whole bottom detached.
They
I
just
had,
were
it
not
was pretty
durable.
much, from the arch back was completely detached. So, and I had one pair actually, I was running in Vegas actually, where I had a stick actually went in between the shoe and the sole on my foot, like all the way through. So, yeah. But they learned how to make really good OCR shoes, and it's just a matter. And like I said, the hard part for me was all of a sudden I'm like, King MT is perfect. They fit my foot. I can feel what it's almost, it's like running barefoot, but not.
Yeah.
It's like you just kind of wrapped a little bit of protection around your foot and went. And it sounds like that's horrible, but it wasn't. It made them amazing with that traction. And I mean, you could go, walk pretty much up the side of a mud hill with great traction and no problems.
I had to say one thing to any shoemaker who probably isn't listening, but just in case.
Hey, come on, give us some credit here.
Don't ever get in bed with Spartan. Don't make a shoe for Spartan, because their partnerships never last. And then it seems like every single brand gets out of their partnership with Spartan and they're like, these shoes we made for Spartan, we don't need them anymore. And then we're like, but those were actually really good shoes.
Yeah.
Just because you're not with Spartan doesn't mean us who run Spartans don't still want to give you our money.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with the MT, like the Reebok ones, I'll be honest, I bought them because they had the Spartan logo on them, because I wanted the Spartan logo. With the MTs, it had nothing to do with the Spartan logo. It had to do with the fact that they were amazing shoes. The only reason I bought,
the first Reebok pair I got, Spartan literally gave them to me because they had an extra pair after that team challenge on NBC. And then I started wearing the King MTs because I needed a better shoe. Like the Speed Crosses, I was an idiot and decided to try those out without doing my research. And then I was like, wait, no, I need a better shoe. So I went to the King MTs. And the only reason I have a King MTs with Spartan logos on them now is because when they discontinued the King MTs, the only place you could still get them were on the Spartan website.
Yes. And that's the only reason I do too, is because that was the only place you could still get the MTs was on the, I'm like, oh, these are the last place MTs are still available. I don't care that they have Spartan. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to do with Spartan. I just want the MTs. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, what's funny, this whole episode's on shoes, which is important. I mean, it's
It
one of
is.
those things. It's, like I said, this
Yeah.
is the whole thing. Ultra, if you're listening, give us some damn MTs. But
Yeah. Don, if you want to send this to Ultra, I
yes,
have no problem.
me either.
I
So
will tag Ultra in all of my posts.
yes,
Ultra, please listen.
bring
and
back the MTs.
Bring back the MTs.
We got to go to one of those. What is that like thing where you can get the people to sign signatures and all that? Change.org or whatever. We need to start a change.org and like
Right?
bring back the MTs.
Oh, that would be amazing. I've thought about it.
I've thought I'm sure we can get some signatures. So
Oh, we definitely can.
yeah, because it just always kills me when they do that. It's like you came up with basically the best OCR shoe, and then suddenly said, "Nah."
Oh, Spartan, you don't want us as a trail sponsor anymore? Okay. There goes the King MTs. And I don't know if that's I don't know if that was how it happened.
But it just seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Ultra wasn't very happy with the, with Spartan taking on Craft. So, they didn't maintain that partnership with Ultra for the trail races. And then the King MTs were just gone.
Yeah, but this is so amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if you've gotten nothing from this episode, just understand that shoes are important. They're very important. Like I said, that was one thing I never completely understood until I really got a good pair of shoes. And then I'm like, okay, this is so important. It's like the last time I wore my Innovates was like the year after my injury. I did Hawaii. And before, one thing a lot of people know, if you ever go with me to Hawaii, the second I get off the plane, my shoes come off and I never put them back on until I get back on the plane. Like I will roam around the entire island like barefoot the entire time. I do the same thing when I get on cruises. Shoes come off and I'm barefoot. I love being barefoot.
I love being barefoot.
When I went to go race, we'd been in Hawaii for a week. So I hadn't been wearing shoes for a week. And then all of a sudden, the first time I put shoes on in a week was race morning.
Yeah.
And I went to put shoes on. Well, apparently in that week from whatever and not drinking enough water or something, my feet had swollen.
Oof.
So when I went to put the shoes on, it pretty much looked like, 2 pounds of hamburger in a 1 pound sack, like trying to get my foot into the shoe barely fit. I could barely get my foot in. So I couldn't even tie them all the way. So, and then I went and did the entire beast with my feet that way. By the time we finished, my feet were literally bleeding because they had so many hot spots, and I'm just like, I'm racked. So there's great pictures of, that Amber took of trying to fix my feet the next morning so I could go do the sprint and the super, because me, I'm stupid. I don't stop. So I
probably wouldn't go do that.
So I ended up just not even wearing trail shoes. I had a pair of like Skechers everyday walk around the town shoes that were the only things my feet would fit into at that point.
Oh.
So I put those on and went for it, and just I ended up finishing the super, looked at my race buddy, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. There's no way I'm doing the sprint. He's like, okay, cool, just stay with me and talk to me. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in the start line with everything going, wait a minute, I said I wasn't doing this. So and that was the first year I actually got the full trifecta.
Wow.
So but it was like my feet were racked. Like we went out to dinner the next day. I couldn't even like put my feet into like flip-flops. I'd wrecked them so bad. And that's when I'm like, okay, this is never happening again.
Yeah.
And that's when I found the MTs. I'm like, oh, these are the shoes that I should have been wearing. It's like I loved the Innovates, but like I said, after my foot, they were so narrow that it didn't give any chance for my foot to swell. Yeah. Which, if you like Innovates, I mean, and that's the thing, we love MTs. Some people like Innovates. Some people like other brands. Find the shoe that fits you.
Yeah. Not every shoe is going to work for every person. In fact, most shoes don't work for a majority of the people.
Yeah.
So stop asking in the forums. Yes.
What shoe should I get? Go try them. Go figure out what shoe. Go figure out the best one for you.
We can't tell you any single thing about what you need for your body because we don't know you.
Yep.
And most of us don't know shoes well enough to actually be able to give that kind of advice. So
Yep.
go get fitted, go on a test run, take advantage of the 30-day return policies, test, and learn about your body.
Yep. And that is the biggest key. Test, learn about you. Because I've had so many times where people are like, you told me this shoe was great. I'm like, no, I told you that those shoes work really well for me.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Test with
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
you ever use in training and racing, because the same thing goes for, fuel or
Mhm.
hydration or the shorts you wear, the anti-chafe you use. It all comes down to what works best for you, not what works best for Jim Bob Sue on Spartans of America.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of people ask me like, oh, what do you wear when you go? Because I'm a bigger guy and doing stuff. And they're like, what do you
Yeah.
wear when you race for like anti-chafe? And I'm like, I have what I use. I have some stuff that, works great. Squirrel nut butters, like my best friend, love them. But then I have specific shorts I wear, specific other thing outfits I wear because they work for my body.
Yeah.
But I've had other ones when I was a different size that worked better.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean,
depends on you and your body. And I mean, I've had ones where people, like I said, have been like, hey, you said this stuff. I'm like, no, I said this is what works for me. And flat out going to tell you, this may not work for you, but this is what works well for me.
yeah. One of my clients this week, he's probably out there right now on his trail doing an extra long run. And I tell every single client, these extra long runs are strictly for testing gear, fuel, and just seeing how your body feels with extra long time on feet. You're not going to get much of a training benefit
No.
on anything over 3 hours. But if I program you for over 3 hours, it is to test everything at a higher time on feet, because I don't want any mysteries come race day. And he's like,
Mhm.
well, what should I eat? What kind of food should I bring? What's this and this? And I said, I can't tell you that.
No.
I said, some people eat Uncrustables. I've never eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so it's not for me. And I'll say, I eat pizza and prosciutto, but some people will eat, and I'll list off all this other stuff. And it's like, I like everything. I'm like, that's great that you like everything. What does your body like
Yeah.
when you're out on a run? That
And
is
what
what
is
you
your
should eat.
what is your stomach going to do?
Yes.
What is it going to like? Because like I said, last year at the SISU, that's where I made another mistake. Was I was doing
Yeah.
great, had everything going, had my food plan set, and had one of the other people was like, hey, you should eat some more. You're not. And I'm like, no, I know this is what, I have my wraps, I have my peanut butter sandwiches. So not peanut butter and jelly, just peanut butter. My peanut butter, and I have my things. And then they had quesadillas, which I found actually I love quesadillas when I'm running.
Right.
But they were great. And then they're like, well, hey, have this, and handed me like a cup of noodle. And I'm like, well, okay, fine. I'll just do this real quick. I don't eat a lot of salt.
Yeah.
So the second I took that cup of noodle, I'm like, okay, we're good. Within 30 minutes, my entire body cramped.
Yeah.
And I had to basically like make a beeline for the bathroom, because the second that salty, liquid from the cup of noodle hit my stomach's like, nope, we don't like this,
Yeah.
and that's why I made a mistake was, taking something I'm not used to eating in the middle of a race. And that's what those long races are for. Go take your fuel. So if all of a sudden you eat something that's going to make your stomach go, hello, we need to evacuate, that. So you're not in the middle of a race. Like, where can I go?
Yeah. So test everything, literally everything before race day.
Yep. And then like I said, the worst thing to do, and that's one of the things I always hate when you go to races and they're handing stuff out, people are like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Have you eaten that before?
Right.
Well, no, this is new. Then put that in your pack and save that for after the race. And then you can try it out and see if you like it on a training race. But if you do that in the middle of the race, whether it be goo, whether it be, the honey stingers or whatever, which a lot of people love all of those. And I love honey stingers. I love the honey stinger waffles and I love protein pucks. But I have done multiple races where I've eaten honey stinger and I've eaten protein pucks and I've eaten all these other things while I'm running. I never had a problem.
Yeah.
But then if I eat something that I'm not used to, like for you, I know you love pizza. My problem would be the tomatoes.
I don't love
Yeah.
pizza, actually. I
Well,
only
but
eat
you eat
pizza
it when
on a race.
but that's what I mean. You eat it on a race. For me on a race, I would be worried about the tomato base.
Yeah.
Because when I eat pizza, normally I get pizza that's not a tomato base because the acidity
Yeah.
of the tomatoes bug my stomach. So that would be my problem on a run. Like, oh, I don't think I want that because I don't want that. So what works great for you may not work great for me. The
Yeah.
prosciutto sounds amazing though. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I get ham and pineapple pizza because, the
Mhm.
protein and the sodium from the ham, same with the prosciutto. The pineapple is antioxidants,
Mhm.
and then the simple carbs of the bread. I could care less about the sauce. Again, I don't eat pizza in my normal day to day.
No.
That's not something I will ever gravitate towards. But, one time I was dating a guy and he was an ultra runner, and he said, as an ultra runner, one of the best things one thing we like to do is we call up the local pizza place and they tell us what corner to meet on, and we pick up our pizza and keep running. And I had that ingrained in my head, like pizza is great for ultra running. So I tried it and I was like, wow, this actually is great. I'm feeling awesome.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I allow myself to eat pizza on a race. I'm not sitting and eating it to eat it on a Friday night. And I think maybe that's why it works a little bit better for me. Is just
Well,
it's
and
a
I could think of
treat.
it. I mean, there's a lot of things like you said, the sodium and all that, and the ham, and then you get the carbs in the bread or the
Mhm.
dough. So I mean, I could see where it'd be a great fuel, and that's it. Usually, and we've talked about this on episodes before, is on race day, your fuel is different than
Yeah,
other days because when we're fueling before race day, we're fueling for long-term energy
yeah,
that's gonna keep us going. On race day, we're looking for that quick
yeah,
fuel. That's why a lot of ultra runners drink Coke on
yeah.
race day.
I
They
I
don't, yeah,
keep Coke
yeah,
in my bin. The
yeah.
other weekend we were coming in from a run. It was like a really hot day, and Brian was like, "Oh, I could really go for a Coke." And I said, "I have a mini can of Coke in my bin in my truck seat. Like I keep my ultra bin
Yeah.
in my truck because that has everything that I would normally fuel with during a race. And I want to have it with me while I'm training because I want to, my training is testing everything out for race day. So I am going to train like I would race.
Yep.
So I just handed him a thing of Coke and he was
Yeah.
all good.
And
But
for me, I like the sugars. I like a
yeah.
sugar. So for a long time, it was sport beans. I loved sport beans.
Hmm.
But now I pretty much gone to like the honey waffles, the honey stinger
Yep.
waffles, which have that sugar, that quick bam that you need. But then I also
Yeah.
have the protein pucks for that little more
Yeah.
long-term energy. So, you find that, but it's like I said, I've trained with those.
Yeah,
So if I
exactly.
have one of those, I know how it's going to affect my body. I know it's not going to suddenly make my body be like, oh crap, and that's where I see the biggest mistakes.
Yeah.
Shoes and fuel.
Yeah, so over the week I stocked up on all of the fuel I need for toughest. I bought a pack of the goo, their Roctane, because I remember the last time I was really training for serious ultras, I had picked up a goo Roctane from like a Dick's Sporting Goods when I was going out on a training run. And they didn't have honey stinger, and that's what I'm used to. And I remember that I had a phenomenal ultra experience on the goo Roctane. So I bought a pack of those and I was like, I know my run today isn't going to be too long, but I'm like, I haven't taken it in a couple of years. I'm going to test it out today to
Mhm.
make sure I respond. I take it as we're starting the run because it says, take 5 minutes and then at the 45 mark. And I took it. I looked at Brian. I said, I hate this texture. This texture is disgusting. But then I felt great running. And I'm like, okay, I can handle that. And like the texture is just an acquired thing for me. So I can use it. My stomach didn't have a bad reaction to it. So now I know. But I would not use that goo Roctane next week had I not tested it today. Because even if I have used it
Mhm.
previously years ago, my body is always adapting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure it worked now, and it does. I will say, since we are getting a little bit into the nutrition stuff, and I know we're getting pretty up there with time.
Oh yeah.
um, you were talking about how, we fuel for longevity during the weeks. And then on race day, it's more about like that quick energy. Have you noticed that Tough Mudder is now giving out Kodiak stuff on course?
No, I hadn't seen that. Are they?
Yeah, so they now have a partnership with Kodiak. And I love Kodiak cakes. I eat Kodiak cakes. I'll even like eat Kodiak cakes before a race because it's got some protein, it's got the carbs. But Kodiak cakes are meant for, a longer processing window.
Yes.
So if anybody is listening to this and they're getting ready to run a Tough Mudder, an Infinity, whatever else, it's a nice treat to have on course. Just be careful because it is going to be something that takes longer to process. So you might not get the same kind of energy boost, especially if you're doing an Infinity, a toughest or world's toughest mudder. That's not the ideal type of energy source. So that's something where I would say throw it into your pack and eat it after the race.
Yes.
Or, the next day or whatever else, because Kodiak cakes are phenomenal. Whole wheat, whole grain. They are complex carbs. Your body is going to be processing them for hours, but you do not have the time on course for food that your body is processing over the course of hours. You need something that is going to go into your system immediately and provide that instant relief.
Yeah. It's like one of those ones. I've known people that have had like hamburgers and stuff, and I'm like, how can you? For me, like the meat, especially beef. Because that's one thing I found when I started training a lot. Beef, I very rarely eat beef. Because beef is one of those ones that does take your body a long time to process. So it processes, turkey and poultry meat a lot faster than it does beef. So a lot of times for me, before a race, I won't eat anything, which is funny because when I first started racing, the night before it was a steak every time before a race. And then after a while, once I started training, I'm like, this is the worst thing I can do.
Yeah.
I should be having something more carby, a lot less, heavy. That's not going to sit in my body, and that's one of those things you got to think about too on race day. And that's why you eat it during a training event to see how it affects your body. And you don't want anything that's going to be heavy and sit there. And that, like you said, I love Kodiak, but during race day, I was thinking that too. I'm like, that's going to be heavy.
Yeah.
Sit there.
Like I love seeing Kodiak partnering with race brands because I think it is a great product that people who maybe aren't, in the fitness world and they're just stepping into like these fun runs, they're getting introduced to it and they're going to make smarter selections when it comes to their pancakes and their waffles and their granola bars and whatever else. Like, awesome. Yes, let's support Kodiak, everything they do, but maybe have that as like the finish line snack.
Yes.
Versus the, mid race snack. And even at the finish line, you want something a little quicker processing because you just did all this damage to your body. Yeah. But that's where, your Fit Aids or whatever else can come in, get a protein shake, eat a granola bar, because the carbs bind to your proteins and it actually goes into your muscle a lot quicker. So things to think about on your next Tough Mudder.
It is, and that's one of the things to think about on a lot of those. It's just the nutrition, not just before, during, but also after. So yeah. All right, but you are right. We are running into we're definitely over.
I have a client meeting in 5 minutes.
Oh, well, we better wrap this up then.
They were like, can we do this at noon? I'm like, no, so I'm going to be on a podcast and we typically run over. Did not expect this kind of run over.
Well, we got in a good conversation.
Shoes.
Yeah, we just talked about shoes the whole time, but I mean, it's a great topic. It's one of those things that I think in the middle of the season, this is the time when a lot of people really need to hear it. Like, hey, all your
change
shoes.
Your shoes.
Yes, change your shoes. Get new ones. It's time for new shoes.
It's time for new shoes.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but I'm sure there's many of you out there. Get new shoes. Go buy some new ones.
Get your new shoes. Yes. If you think your shoes are kicked, they are. Go get new shoes.
Yes, they are. And I can attest that from this last weekend. Yes, I thought they were, and they were. So my feet are paying for that.
Now I will be swapping out my King MTs and running in brand new King MTs next weekend.
Yes, and you're going to kick
while
some ass.
I allow the other ones to slowly die in shorter training and racing distances. And again, Ultra, if you're listening, bring back the King MTs.
Yes, please.
And we are happy to test them out for you.
Yes, we'll test them out. So send us a couple pairs. We'll be
Yes.
happy.
Yes.
I'm a 9.5, just saying. So
7.5, please.
There we all right. Well, thank you as always. It was a
Oh,
blast.
this was fun.
So good luck with your client. And we'll have to talk soon.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.